Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Monaco, one of my favorite places in the world. We are back here a week or so later after the Monaco Yacht Show, and if you are a regular viewer of the channel, you'll know that we did a yacht tour of Monaco Yacht Victorious, this boat I'm pointing at here. We did a yacht tour of this boat, but we just did like the plush end, you know, the nice rooms, the cinema and that kind of stuff. And we very briefly went across the bridge and looked at some of the equipment. Today, however, we're going to go back on board and we're going to do a technical tour of the boat. So we've come back from Italy to Monaco, so let's go and do that. One of the things you need to do when you go on board is you have to take your shoes off. This is pretty normal. The guys on the boat, they will have their own shoes. They'll have special shoes for just being on board, but as we're not from the boat, we have to take our shoes off and leave them outside.
Hello, my name is Stoyan. I'm the chief engineer of Monaco Yacht Victorious. The setup on board is two big generators, C18s Caterpillar, and we have two small generators, C9s Caterpillar. So the C18s are 465 kilowatts, and they're more than enough to maintain the boat with all the consumers. Even it's enough to run the boat thruster with one generator, but for safety reasons we have set it to always run with backup, and normally the backup is one of the small ones. The two small generators, C9s, are together with the main engines down in the main engine room, and it's a very cool setup here. The big generators, they are in a separate room, which is right next to the control room. It's kind of like emergency generators. They act in a way that even if we have a big problem in the control room, like a flooding or fire, we can always split the switchboard and run these ones as a backup power.
Can you explain why we run a generator? What requires a generator when the boat isn't moving? Because a lot of people will think that when you're docked, you don't need to run anything with an engine.
Every boat is like a small city or a little village, and we are running air conditioning, all the lights, obviously, they require power. All the pumps, like freshwater pumps, all the seawater pumps. And at the moment, we don't have as high consumption as running at sea, but still, as you can see at the moment, 160, 180 kilowatts while just sitting and doing nothing. Yeah. Okay. Obviously the galley, laundry, these are the big consumers during the day.
Okay. Can you give us a brief overview of, I see you've got 4 generators and the shore power.
Yes.
So you can just go through how you set up, so you know when you're moored, you'll have one generator generally running, and then but you'll have a failover generator and backup generators. Could you just go through how that works here?
So in our case, we have this system, Dave, which is pretty simple and reliable, and you have, in our case, 4 generators, and each of them has priority. Let's say if you look here, you have this one as a priority 1, this one is priority 4, priority 3, and priority 2. So for example, now I would like to switch to this generator, which is the auxiliary engine room, just behind the wall. And what I'm going to do, because everything is set to auto, if any of these fails, the next priority will kick and take the power. So for example, if I ask this one to be priority 1, it will start, it will take the load, and then because of the low demand, the other 2 will just switch off because the power is not required. You can hear shortly when the breaker closes. So that's the breaker. It starts taking the power, and this one you can see it says DG stopping. So this one will go offload at the moment, and shortly, because this is priority 2, this one also goes off. So the power demand is not as high, and one generator is more than enough to carry on. So what we have at the moment, that's all the things we can see, all alarm groups. Then you have mimics. For example, you go to main engine, You have all the details about temperatures, pressures, all the condition related to the engine. It's a good thing to have two monitors because obviously you can't really keep an eye on everything with just one screen. So
just while we were talking, we got an alarm, and then you also got something on the radio. Can you go into how that works?
if we walk around, even on the quay, it will always come the alarm. It comes here. It's with a radio device, comes also to the radios, only on the engineering channel. So for example, now the engineers, we have a separate channel.
Right, so you have a repeater system on board.
Yes.
So you have a radio goes through a repeater system, and the alarm system is connected to the radio system, so it is able to send alarms to the radios. Does your radio have a display that tells you what the alarm is?
Not what the alarm is, but it says it's engine room alarm.
Okay. So you have to go to a panel to see what it actually is.
So yeah, all engineers, they have panel in their cabins. We have panel on the bridge. We have panel in the crew mess area, and panel in the main engine room. We have a quick access to the engine room, which is pretty, you know, like a really quick access. You jump down the hole and you are already in the engine room. Yeah.
Wow.
And obviously that's escape to the main deck.
Right. So I just want to point out here, another watertight door here. You can't see them because they're, you know, they're hidden quite well.
So I can quickly show you. When you press close, the door lifts the flap.
Oh, okay, that is pretty loud.
Obviously, when we have drills, or even if we have fire or water ingress, it will be announcement from the bridge saying all watertight doors will be closed, and obviously everybody should stay clear. But that's the second thing. You listen. If that start coming, that means somebody, even by mistake, hit the switch for closing all the watertight doors, and you have to just stay clear. Then that's the crew area. There is another one, and one more further forward.
One of the things I was saying is that when the doors close, it can even catch crew out, you know, because it looks so different, because they're so used to the environment with the doors open, that when sometimes you have the fire screen doors or the watertight doors closed, all of a sudden it feels like a complete, and you're like, oh, where am I? You know, because you're so used to seeing it.
So the thing is, every single watertight compartment requires escape. And for example, if you get trapped here between this and this door, you always have the way to run away. So in this case, you just pull the lever and run through the hatch. That brings you to a deck above, which is already not a watertight deck, so it's above the water.
Right. It almost looks like a aircraft.
Yeah.
A runway.
Yeah. Okay, we go this way. So going through the workshop, few little projects going on. So, main engine room. A little bit warm at the moment because we just stopped the generators. As I mentioned before, two C9s, the one on the side, and obviously the main engines. That's the local control for the main engines. And as we mentioned, we have an alarm panel just here in the main engine room.
So you can start the engines from here, obviously, but I believe the captain can also start them from the bridge.
At the moment, we have them set to remote control, and he can start and run them anytime. It doesn't really present.
It's unusual for a yacht this size.
For every ship, it's unusual to keep the engines on remote, because there is always system. For example, to run the engines, you need a shaft pulling. And that's the only thing why captain should call at the moment. And we have control from the control room, and this is the local control for the shaft cooling pumps. And basically all it requires at the moment to run the engines is just to start the shaft cooling. Everything else, it's on auto. It will be both thruster requests, everything comes on auto, main engines, everything.
You can actually control the throttles down here.
You can, yes.
What's the purpose of you being able to control the throttles down here?
It may be a communication problem, so you should be able to really run the engines, monitor everything locally. I can just call on the radio reduce because there is always somebody on the bridge. But if I'm here and I'm seeing something, let's say I'll hit the emergency stop on the engine which has the problem, then we'll go from there. As I mentioned already, the generators, we have 4 stabilizers or 2 sets of stabilizers here. It's a little bit unusual. Normally a little bit bigger boat, they have 2 sets of stabilizers. In our case, we have 1 pair here and 1 pair forward. So at the moment, of course, we are not using them. It's pretty quiet in the port. Seawater pumps servicing the air conditioning. Then we have the bilge valves. All of them are remotely controlled. But of course, if you have problem with the remote control, you can always come, swing the handle, and then you can close or open. When it's on auto, that becomes free. We have ballast tanks. Obviously, we should treat the ballast water, and that's the unit.
Okay.
Taking the water,
So
there is...
Ballast, can you just quickly explain the ballast tank, what it's for?
So when the boat, in order to keep the boat stable, for stability reasons, if we have full tanks with fuel, obviously the ballast will be 0. But then when we start using the fuel, we have to keep the stability in similar conditions. So for example, start using the fuel from forward, we use the tanks, and then we'll fill a pair of ballast tanks to keep the same conditions. Every ship, it's required by MARPOL to have a treatment plant for all the sewage waters. And for example, on board you have 2 types of water. You have a black water, which is basically a toilet water coming from the toilets, and then you have gray water, which is mostly coming from showers and laundry and all these things. In order to be able to discharge the water overboard, it goes through a treatment, goes through stages. Actually, every ship has a different treatment plant. There is sewage treatment plants which are certified to pump water in every port. The water basically is kind of drinkable after the sewage treatment plant. And then there is a treatment system which they are not certified to pump water in port. You have to be outside a certain mileage from the coast. In our case, we have huge gray water and black water tanks. We have like place to hold lots of this gray and black water, and we don't have to pump any. But even if we have to, later on when you walk out, you'll see on the gangway we have a connection to the shore box, where if we have to, we just pump to the shore facilities. So the water never goes in the sea. We have 3 water makers, and at the moment we have a little bit service on one of them. So that's the high pressure pump, basically making water, taking the water from the sea, going through a very high pressure pump, pressing the water through a very fine filters, and in the end of the filters you have separation between fresh water and the raw water, which goes back, the salty water, back to the sea.
All right, so we're going through here. You said this is a bridge deck, and this is the bridge.
Hello and welcome to the Wheelhouse of Monaco Yacht Victorious. I happen to be the captain of the boat, and as such I'm the ultimate responsible for all the safety on board. As you can see, our wheelhouse is quite spacious. The wheelhouse is standardly equipped with the required equipment for commercial vessels. As the boat is built to comply with the large yacht code, we have all the necessary navigational equipment. Like obviously any boat need to have a accurate echo sounder. As you can see now, since we're in the heart of the Monaco, in the Monaco port, the depths in the port are quite considerable related to other marinas where normally you would expect 3 to 5 meters under keel clearance. Here we have more than 40 meters.
And there's a split screen. Can you explain why there's two readings?
We have two sensors on the boat. Obviously, with the size of the boats nowadays, they become bigger and bigger. It's important to know exactly the under keel clearance that you have forward and aft on your boat. So we have two sensors on each end of the boat, and that is giving the depth. As you can see, there is a difference. Obviously, the forward is the deepest one because being closer to the exit, and the aft section is near to the dock where it's shallow water.
Okay.
But still 21 meter is very,
good.
very deep water for a yachting marine. Of course, that we're closer to the passenger ship terminal where big ships are coming with a much bigger draft than us. Our draft is 4.4 meters, and this is one of the symptoms that Victorious is really a solid, heavy boat, because usually a boat of this size will have a draft of 3.5 to 3.8 meters. Even without the help of the stabilizers, she's very stable at sea because of the volume and the weight, and of course the design of the hull, which is built to be explorer type. Nevertheless, we have very modern quantum control stabilizing system equipped with two sets of fins, which additionally provide sufficient stability even going through the moderate and rough seas for the boat to be stable, so the guests can continue to enjoy their trip while we are cruising through the rough seas. We have the standard setup of equipment, which consists of electronic chart display. Nowadays we don't use anymore the paper charts, we use electronic charts, even though electronics should not be relied to 100% never, and there is no equipment that can substitute the human brain.
Right.
That's why this is just additional aid to navigation, but in normal circumstances, this is what we are here for,
Right.
to make sure we are going through on the right direction.
Do I see a paper chart over there? You carry paper charts too?
Yes. Nowadays, it's the electronic chart display are very popular, but for planning purposes, as a general view, it's always good to have a paper chart just as a reference and to make your general planning. And also it's useful to monitor the weather development, for example. Now in the Mediterranean, obviously it's not that common, but when we're in the Caribbean, tropical storms are very important to be tracked accordingly, and the paper chart comes very handy.
And so it means you have to do the updates as well, though. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Right.
any chart that is used, we are updating it. Absolutely.
Okay.
So the electronic charts we use, we have two equivalent systems which are required for redundancy. If we lose one, we have the second one taking over. They are supplied with a dedicated power supply. So even if the ship blackouts, main power supply fails, we always have power to the navigational equipment that is required to navigate the boat.
Okay.
We have, of course, two radars which are required for the navigation, especially the reduced visibility.
The S-band and X-band radars?
Yes, X-band, you can actually see here.
Okay.
They are X-band and S-band, and central monitors of our alarm monitoring system. And we can see, for example, the fuel that we have right now on board is 135 cubic meters. On the same display, you can see our maximum capacity is 270 cubic meters of marine diesel oil, or 270,000 liters, which for a boat of this size is quite a high volume and can give us very long range. We can easily cross any ocean, even the Atlantic we can cross twice without bunkering. With our engines, the vessel is equipped with two Caterpillar 3512 series engines with the total power of 3,000 horsepower. We can achieve 12,000 nautical miles range on the economy speed of around 9 knots. If we are looking for a higher speed, she can comfortably cruise with the 14.5, 15, reaching maximum speed of 17 knots. And even with the speed of 15 knots, we can still achieve 7,000 miles range. Again, we can cross the Atlantic easily and even come back.
Oh.
On top of this, we have as well very high productive water makers, which can produce up to 50,000 liters of fresh water a day. As you know, we have a lot of jacuzzis on board, a swimming pool, so we need a lot of water. Our laundry is also very big to be able to attend the amount of guests on board.
Of course.
But most importantly, we have the autonomy with the fuel and with the water production, and of course with the provisioning compartments. We have the full autonomy to be independent for a month or two or even three, which is quite useful nowadays, especially with the COVID.
Right. Because a lot of people don't realize to be to be out at sea for a length of time. It's not just about the fuel; it's about the food and the water and supply, provisions and.
Yes, there's a lot of logistics that people don't see usually, but it takes a lot of preparation, and not any boat can do this. Of course, you need redundancy of all the systems, but with Victorious it's easily achievable. Of course, we cannot produce fresh bananas, this I can guarantee, but we have nice storages where we can keep our fresh produce for a month easily.
Nice. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
The crew have a very limited amount of privacy on any boat, and they're usually sharing cabins. And the last thing they want is they're sitting in the mess. Maybe they're on nights, they've just gone in the mess to have a bowl of cereal, and the next thing a guy walks in with a camera filming. So I'm not going to do that. It's disappointing that you want to see those areas. It's very interesting. I'd love to see those areas too, but I'm not going to go in and film in those areas because of those reasons. So. All right, so that's the end of the tour. Hope you enjoyed it. The chief engineer was great at describing how those systems work. Don't forget, this boat is a charter boat. This is built as a charter vessel, so it's has to be more mainstream, so it appeals to more people, right? I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell for future notifications for more videos like this.